Hi, everybody. Welcome to Pockets Full of Soup, the storytelling show. I'm your host, Jared Petty, joined today by the glorious, the uproarious. Is that a word?
Sure, I like that.
Uproarious?
Yeah, I'll take it.
Okay. Who are you?
My name is Danny O'Dwyer.
You are Danny O'Dwyer. Danny O'Dwyer of No Clip?
I guess.
All right, you guess.
It's still weird that people don't say of GameSpot.
Well, I could say of GameSpot.
Well, it wouldn't be accurate.
No, it would not be accurate.
We're no longer working neighbors, as it were.
That's true. We're not on 2nd Street together anymore. So, no, that's the entire video game industry,
yes.
or the video game press exists on 2nd Street. That's
it was so weird when I first moved over here, and then knowing that like 1UP was there, and then GameSpot, and then IGN and Ubisoft around the corner from you guys,
right?
And then Twitch ended up kind of being near
corner
there.
Yeah. Wired's not far away. Yeah. Now Kotaku, they're off doing their own thing someplace, and
Polygon are kind of just like all over the place.
To the wind.
Well, it just feels like Watch Dogs, doesn't it? Where you just keep like everyone's in the same like tiny little fake version of San Francisco. I literally, the lake is like in the game. I have like seen Arthur Gies walking around the lake before.
Just walking around the lake.
So it's basically just Watch Dogs.
You've seen Arthur in Watch Dogs?
No, in real life, but
okay.
I can't tell the difference anymore.
I think seeing Arthur in Watch Dogs would somehow be especially glorious.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Occasionally, people get into games. James Melky was in one of the Fatal Frame games, I think.
Reichert was in infamous Second Son.
Second Son, was it?
He's 33% of the Russian mobsters in that game use his face. Like one in 3 is Dan Reichert.
That's something to aspire for. And of course, Miller, he's Superboy, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think his voice is Superboy. He's not like he's not like the face, but I believe he's the voice of Superboy in the game.
One day, Jared. One day we'll get in.
What do you want to be?
Oh, I don't know. It'll have to be an Irish person, wouldn't it? That's the problem.
Well, it wouldn't have to. You could probably do like a fake accent.
I could do accents, but they're not very good. I can do other like niche regional accents.
Okay, like what? Can you give us one?
Why did I set myself up for this?
You really did. Yeah, it's not the people demand it.
I don't know. Me and my wife were watching Braid last night.
Okay.
So I was trying to put on like a Scottish accent, but that's about all I'm going to do.
Okay, you're not going to give us the stereotypical, the William Wallace, the
Freedom. I can probably do a better one than Mel Gibson, I imagine.
Shots fired. Shots fired indeed.
When he's on your podcast next.
We talked about some of the other outlets. We didn't. What about Game Informer? They're kind of off. Like, they're in like Minneapolis. Right?
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
That's it. It's like snow time around there now. So Riker used to talk about, there was one of the guys who used to work there used to just put his bag put his feet in a plastic bag and walk to work. Mm-hmm. He just didn't care about boots.
Oh, my mother used to lay out plastic bags that you get like at the grocery store,
right.
And between our socks and our boots, we put those bags on.
Oh, probably helps with water soak.
Yeah, getting into your boots, and because if you got in really deep snow, that could happen. Yeah, I lived in the mountains in North Carolina, and every now and then we get some pretty heavy snow. Not often, but every now and then. But yeah, Minneapolis, I think those guys are smart because they kind of out there. It's like, you don't have to deal with San Francisco rent. Minnesota's really pretty.
Amen.
Nice people.
Yes,
food.
The rent thing, especially since starting No Clip, which is, by the way, my Patreon.
Patreon, eh?
Yeah, I know, right? Imagine that. Maybe you're familiar with it.
I am.
Listener to Pockets Full of Soup. Yeah, it's that's been a more sort of real thing as well. It's like, oh yeah, it's pretty expensive living here. So we're probably not going to stay around here much longer.
Yeah,
and moving out in 2017.
Ooh, where are you headed?
Somewhere east.
East
Coast. Be a bit closer to family. More reasonable. Able to think about starting a family without remortgaging the house that you don't have a mortgage
that you don't have in the first place.
Yeah.
I love the Bay Area. In many ways, people are marvelous. The weather is undescribably wonderful. It's creative. It's fascinating. But it's no human beings can afford to live here.
It's getting more and more ridiculous. Like I don't even live in San Francisco. I'm out in Oakland, and like even here, it's just becoming ridiculous. Like if you I go on Zillow. Zillow is like you remember you used to go on Tinder, and like Zillow's like my Tinder where
you're swiping apartments.
Where I'm speaking, hi.
Hey, look, this one's only $3,000 a month.
Exactly,
wow.
Right?
Yeah, it's just like.
And then you go into the purchasing section, and it's like, what?
I will never own property.
Right. It's ridiculous. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
Kind of marvelous. I want to go back to the accents again for a second.
Oh no! I thought I got out of it.
You got Scottish. Can you do one more? Like what's a good?
Oh, throw me one.
Can you do like how about just
Beled Diamond fucking prawns,
Okay, now so the South African one's hard. That's actually
C'est difficult.
Do you know Kyle O'Connor at IGN?
I don't.
He's South African.
I know.
And you'll hear the edge of it. But Kyle lived in South Africa, and then he moved to Portugal.
Right.
And then he moved to the States. So, man, that accent is all kinds of fun.
That's a whole situation.
It really is. How about American? Can you give us like an East Coast American accent?
East Coast, is that like Boston?
Yeah, well, there's several. I mean, there's New York, there's Boston, there's the Southeast.
There's more than one accent?
Oh, yeah. New York is one, Boston's another, and then kind of the Southeast has its whole other thing going on.
Boston's like that Harvard Yard. Is that?
Yeah, like that, yeah.
I watched The Departed.
There you go.
I can't. All right. It's really terrible.
Yeah, we apologize to all of New England
and South Africa.
Please keep watching. And all of South Africa. And
I think my English accent is because I lived in London for 4 years.
Okay.
So I lived in East London, and you know Idris Elba. You ever listen? You know that fella? He used to be Stringer Bell in The Wire.
Oh, okay.
That guy, he's got a real like London feels accent, but he puts on a really good American accent when he's on over here.
So what makes it work? Like, what's the key to doing good London accent?
I fucking have no idea. Like honestly,
yeah,
doing them to Americans.
Oh, that's how you do it?
Because they think it's good.
Because we don't know the difference.
All the English people are like, what the fuck? What's he doing? I used to go to Arsenal games, which is my favorite football team, soccer team. Sorry.
Okay.
And whenever they sing, it's like Arsenal is the chant. But when you're there, you go, it's Arsenal, because that's like the other like thousands of people around you are chanting at the same time.
And so you kind of fall into that same cadence.
Yeah, it's like I think it's a very maybe it's a very everyone thing, but it's definitely a very Irish thing that like. You are sympathetic with accents. Okay. Irish people adopt other accents really quickly.
Okay.
And it's also a country that has like a surprising number of accents. Like I'm not as good as I used to be, but like back home, you can kind of figure out what county someone's from based on their accent.
So the regional dialects are that
super distinct.
You know, that actually makes sense. I mean, Japan's a very small, compact country, and it's kind of the same way. You go to a different region in Japan, people speak completely differently. Right. And even as a non-Japanese speaker, I could hear some of it.
Yeah.
You'd pick it up there. So I wonder what it is about compact, densely populated societies that causes like small areas of I don't know anything about language. Do you?
No, not at all. To me, though, it seems very strange because it's the same thing in England. But like these are countries that have retained these accents, and they're not big. They're not like large land masses. Like Ireland's really small. We don't have that many people. Like outside of Dublin, it's basically it's like 4 million all in, and 2 million of them live in Dublin.
Wait, there's only 4 million people in Ireland?
Maybe it's 4.5 now. But
I didn't realize it was that sparsely populated.
Yeah, super. Once you get out of Dublin, there's the second biggest city in Ireland is about 150,000 people.
Wow, startling ignorance about geography with Jared. That's what we have going on here. What else do people not know about Ireland?
God, I'm trying to think. The one thing that gets over here is that people don't know the whole Great Britain, UK, Ireland, Europe thing.
Oh, really?
And Brexit's probably not making this any easier right now either, to be completely honest. Yeah. But yeah, not knowing that Ireland isn't part of the United Kingdom or Great Britain,
realizing that it's a completely independent nation.
But then there is Northern Ireland, which is part of Great Britain but not part of the United or part of the United Kingdom but not part of Great Britain. So it's it's a bit of a mess.
Was it 1792 that the French invasion and the uprising took place? I'm trying to remember. Was that 92
in Ireland?
Yeah, in Ireland.
How do you? I 70. Don't ask me about 1790 anything.
I was sorry. Well, I mean, there have been multiple uprisings in Ireland, of course.
Spanish involved. In fact, that's what my surname's is O'Dwyer, means dark and tawny, because apparently some Spanish people had sex with a bunch of Western Irish people.
Oh, okay.
And made slightly darker skin. Although my skin is not dark at all. My brother's got dark skin. But,
does he? All right.
But for some reason.
And that was from Spanish influence.
Apparently. And my hometown is 1,000 years old. It's the first Viking settlement.
Man, you guys have all the luck.
It's really weird.
Besides famines and being conquered and all the other horrible, sad things that have happened, you do get like 1,000-year-old cities. Is it Eddie Izzard who talks about how you come to America and nothing's old.
Right.
I think it's in Dressed to Kill. He's like, he's on a tour in like Miami, and they're like, and this hotel is preserved just as it was 50 years ago. And how ludicrous that sounds to a European.
But I think you guys are really good at like retaining your history in a way that like, because there's so much history in like, it's so dense in Europe. And like I had the same sort of experience when I lived in London, and that's a city that's got so much history and so dense with history over hundreds of years and so many different eras and whatnot, that like you guys are really good at like preserving what little history there is. Like I find it like I don't know. Like,
do you think we're good at that?
Yeah. Like, if you don't have history, you can't really speak to it. You know.
So what's an anecdote for you? What's a piece of American history that you've discovered? You're like, oh, I really like what they did with that. Hey, well preserved, guys. Well done.
I was really surprised, and I feel like it's involved in like architecture a lot.
Okay.
Like, I'm really surprised at how much, like, especially actually, I lived in San Francisco beside the Presidio, and I didn't realize that the Presidio was originally a Spanish military base that has sort of been taken over by the American. I guess I don't know that much.
Yeah, there's a long kind of rollout history of the Presidio being a fort for various different occupying powers, right?
And knowing and seeing all the like sort of, I don't know, like, if you go into the Presidio, so much of that has been retained. The Spanish parts, there is the American barracks that are still there. They have the cannon. Have you seen the cannons there?
I have, yeah.
And they skim. Those cannons are so low, and they were firing so fast that they could skim the cannonballs.
Like skim the cannonballs along the water.
Like throwing a stone.
Okay, that's awesome. I did not know that.
So the
Okay, that's right. I've been out on the old battery points, around the harbor, and back in the age of like naval gunnery, when you still shot guns at each other, the Presidio made so much sense to occupy because it commanded the whole entrance to the bay and the harbor, and now when in an age of missiles and long range warfare, not nearly as important, but. So I guess that's why Lucasfilm's there now instead.
Exactly. Alcatraz apparently as well was again made total sense. Gold rush, lots of booty in San Francisco to get, but you had this one island in the middle which basically had cannons 360 to
just
around
point them in all directions, like stay away.
Apparently they thought that if an invasion force came over during World War II, that it was probably going to, if it had hit up there, then they had like a lot of battlements. But
they built all those batteries out there. Of course, at that point, you're always ready to fight the war that came before.
Right.
So they're going to fight Jutland again. They're going to fight a battleship battle. And they're like, oh, the aircraft carrier's been invented. Yeah. None of this is useful at all. But boy, we spent a lot of money on it.
Exactly. Yeah.
But wow, hey, it's History Cast with Danny and Jared.
I know, yeah. I'm the worst historian ever as well.
I like history. I really enjoy it. And I don't think you're being fair to yourself. Sounds like you know a lot about history, other than whether the invasion of Ireland by the French, or it wasn't an invasion. Well, the French invaded, but I think they were invited to invade. I think
were they helping?
Kind of
I know the Spanish helped a lot in the south, but they helped the Irish try and get rid of the English.
Yeah, well, this was the French trying to help the Irish get rid of the English.
Right,
it was the same kind of thing. Yeah, and
mutual enemy.
Lord Cornwallis, who was a British commander in America during the American Revolution, he's the guy that lost at Yorktown.
Oh, right.
He was like Lord something other of Ireland at that point, and he sent a bunch of British guys down and chased the French out and hung a bunch of Irish people. It was really sad.
Now that I mentioned, there is a guy called William Vincent Wallace, not William Wallace, which again would be the aforementioned Mel Gibson character from Braveheart.
Okay.
But there's a guy called William Vincent Wallace who has a statue in my hometown, and he got the Irish tricolour, which is our flag, right?
Okay.
It was given to him by the French, and I don't know when this was. It might have been then. I always had it in my head that he had like fought in the Revolution or something and was given it to it then. But
it may have been.
The French flag is it's the blue and the red is it two separate houses or something?
I have no idea.
And then the white is meant to represent peace.
I did not know that.
So the Irish flag, which is hanging over there above the door, the green represents Catholicism.
Okay.
The orange is, the orange or William of Orange is Protestantarianism.
Right.
And the white is peace.
Between the two.
So the Irish flag is literally like made up of the thing that has divided Ireland more, or had historically divided Ireland more.
So it's an optimistic theological statement.
Kind of, yeah. Like, hey, we're all, and you're basically trying to like form what is, hundreds of centuries or dozens of centuries of clans and various, Anglo-Norman, Saxon, Viking, runts which had like lived in bogs and
lived in bogs
for like hundreds of years
people
under one thing. And I mean, like, a common enemy is a really good way of uniting people, as we all know from Watchmen.
Oh, we did learn that from Watchmen, as well as other places, but especially from Watchmen. For more on Ozymandias' plot to unite the human race through space aliens that he fakes, see Watchmen. I think I just spoiled Watchmen.
I think the movie ending was better. I don't think the movie's great.
Okay.
But I think they didn't do the whole, what was it, the ship subplot, that whole...
Oh, Well, you're talking about like the pirate ship thing?
Yes.
Like, yeah,
that
the
whole
pirate comic.
And then transporting the alien into New York. Like, they just went straight for a bomb.
They fake it differently.
Yeah.
Right? He does fake something, doesn't he? I can't remember.
He does. I think they fake it that it's Dr. Manhattan that basically...
Oh, they fake that Dr. Manhattan destroys the world. Okay, yeah, I think you're right about that. If
As
you haven't
opposed
seen
to
Watchmen,
space...
we're sorry. No, I mean, if you haven't read Watchmen by now, go read it first, even if you know what's going to happen, because it's great. But no, I like the movie. I think that, you know, we joke, visionary director Zack Snyder. That's a beautiful movie. It has its high points and its low points, and I wish
the slow motion sex scene with Hallelujah.
There's that. Yeah, I wish they'd have never let him direct another movie again after Watchmen. That would have been.
I think that. Wait, he did that. What else did he do? 300
Batman versus Superman.
Oh no, yeah.
Man of Steel.
I liked Man of Steel.
You liked Man of Steel,
but I don't like Superman.
Okay.
I don't like.
A good movie for
I don't like comic books.
No comic books at all.
I like Watchmen. I like graphic novels, but I don't like superheroes. Okay. I'll say that. Okay. Like, I'm reading like East of West now and Saga and some other things, but I've never been into the superhero thing. But for whatever reason, I think it's like an expectation thing. I came in with relatively low expectations. And
okay.
This is
well, that makes sense. And if you actually, I really do think that Man of Steel is a Superman movie made by somebody who doesn't like Superman.
Right.
And that bugs me because I really like Superman, and I think that a lot of the arguments that have been made about how you can't tell good Superman stories are made by people that have never read any of the good Superman stories. Like Superman, it's like saying you can't write good Batman stories because there were 10 years of horrible Batman stories between 65 and 75. You know, no, there have been beautiful stories about Superman. You just need a competent storyteller to write them and tell them and understand the character. And I don't think Man of Steel really tried, but I can see liking it if you're not drawn to that whole faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. Look, up in the sky, it's a bird, it's a plane. You know, that whole thing.
No, the version he went for was win by any cost,
yes.
Apparently.
Win!
Even if it means destroying this map. And it seemed like destroying the city eventually was a launch point for another movie, but like, were you really planting that seed back then?
No, I just think he really liked dubstep. Okay. And he just wanted to have that beat coming down there in the middle of it. I don't know. My problem with all of those is like, I'm Superman and I'm so powerful and it's terrible. I really hate how wonderful I am. I'm Henry Cavill. I'm the most handsome man alive.
It's incredibly handsome. He's no, who's the other guy on the TV show?
I would kiss that man. I would kiss him so hard on the lips.
Dean Cain.
Oh, Dean Cain.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, he's beautiful. He's
Ripley's Believe It or Not.
Okay, so yeah, Frank Knight and I were talking once at IGN. I don't know if you're Frank, but we wanted to make a sitcom called Super Friends that was Dean Cain, Brandon Ruth, and Tom Welling all living in an apartment together. I think that sitcom needs to happen. No, that would be terrible. It's
just shower scenes over and over again.
Well, we were thinking more just a bunch of guys playing Superman. Yeah, but this is a show about what we're thinking. We have gone off the beaten path.
Yeah, quite a bit actually.
But I'm okay with that. I'm having a ball. Were you a fan of 1UP back in the day?
I was, but Ireland's internet was really bad. So one of my friends used to get the 1UP show, but I didn't have broadband, so I couldn't get it.
Oh, so you couldn't watch the 1UP show.
So I used to watch it. He'd send me like on a zip disc. He would send me like episodes, and I'd watch them, but then they'd be like from like a month ago, so I wouldn't care anymore.
Okay.
But I did watch it.
1UP's how I got into this job.
Oh, awesome!
Not this job, not Pockets, but I got into IGN through 1UP.
Excellent.
Originally, it was like 2006, and I got around then, and I got an iPod for Christmas.
Right.
And I was like, well, what am I going to put on this thing? Well, I've got music. I like music, but it's like podcasts. Fine. What are these? And 1UP was just starting to roll out its podcasts, and it was like one of them was Retronauts, which Jeremy Parrish still does to this day with Bob Mackey, and I was like, I like old video games. I have an iPod. I'll listen to this. It was just for fun. I was working at a very different job in Florida at that point. I moved to Japan a couple of years later to teach English, and I was still listening to these casts, and I always enjoyed writing, and so I just started writing about games for fun for a little local English language magazine in Japan. 1UP eventually picked me up.
Oh, awesome!
Based on the work that started there, and then turned into some other things I did for them, and it was gonna.
It's funny how like back then you needed somebody to like show you that it's like everything in life. Once you see someone else doing something, you're like, oh, I could do that. but unless you see it, it's hard to manifest the idea yourself. And it's so strange how like that's kind of no longer an issue now because there's so many people doing a version of video game talking.
Yeah, we can sit here and do this, but so can anyone. Right. I mean, and that's delightful. I love the democratization of it. It's incredible. Are you familiar with James Burke?
I know. No.
Okay. Scientific historian James Burke talked about how he'd hoped that maybe, just maybe, the kind of marvelous digital anarchy that a network of networks, at that point there was no internet,
right,
but that might enable someday, would give so many voices to people that maybe we'd finally be able to hammer out some kind of societal consensus that was different than anything else.
The opposite happened.
There is that, but there are good parts to it, and one of it's that anybody can try. The problem is anybody can try.
Right, exactly.
That does sometimes come around to bite you.
Yeah, but I think like the good with the bad, and it's the same for everyone. I used to think, growing up in the south of Ireland in this small town, I was like very hidden away from the realities of the world, and I kind of in growing up and maturing, I've realized that actually kind of everyone is. We all live in our own little bubbles, regardless of geographically where that is. But the internet, from the starting point, was just like felt like opening up like, I don't know, Pandora's box for information. It was just access to ideas that I didn't have, and I kind of felt like I needed. Like I had, you have unanswered questions growing up, and suddenly there's this thing that's invented that has
the answers are there.
They're in there. Some of them are scary answers, some of them are maybe wrong answers, but the answers are in there, and you kind of have to go shuffle through them. For
all its flaws and all its difficulties, and it has many. I do kind of think Wikipedia is the eighth wonder of the world.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it's an extraordinary. There's never been anything like that, and I think it's hard for people below a certain age to understand that there was a world where you couldn't know.
Do you remember encyclopedias?
Yeah, I remember.
It was like, that was the main thing in if this was like a living room 20 years ago, you'd have the big shelf with all the things on it.
We had one, the Funk and Wagnalls. There's an unfortunate name.
We had an atlas. My sister's atlas growing up was my favorite book, and it had the USSR in it. Like, my favorite book was wrong. And that was only like 3 or 4 years after, or like maybe 6. She was 9 years older than me. So like totally different. In fact, if you're listening to this right now, and I know like we're both people who are like saying subscribe to our Patreons, but like honest to God, give Jimmy Wales your money. Whenever that pop-up comes up, just give Wikipedia. If you can give it a buck, just do it. Like every time that comes up, I give it.
It helps.
Because it's for people like us, it's amazing because it's like handy for how it's integrated into basically every other type of web app. But for like people in parts of the world that are just getting the internet, like, oh my God, that is such an incredible resource.
It's a resource that has the potential to make the world a better place.
The thing about Wikipedia is that you think that any sort of crowdsourced information hub is going to be manipulated in some way, and it's not perfect, and there are things that get changed and edited and whatnot, but it's actually like it's doing a really great job. Like for the most part, it is a very accurate and fair resource for information.
There's a million problems, but it's better than almost anything we've ever had, and that's what makes it extraordinary. You know what? Let's get to the part where we talk about you.
Okay.
I mean, talking about you is fun anyway, but I want to ask, or rather, let's get to the part where you talk about somebody in your life and tell us a story. Danny, I'm going to ask you the question we ask every guest every week until I decide to change it. Tell me about somebody you're thankful for.
This is always I always hear everyone struggle with this a little bit because you immediately, especially when you work in the games press, you create a ranked list in your head of the people who you're thankful for. And if you don't talk about the like thankful person of the year at the top, then you feel like a piece of dirt.
The top 9 people like, I'm thankful for.
Exactly right.
You won't believe number 4.
So it's like, people I'm thankful for, obviously like my family and my wife and all of these beautiful people. But like you have a lot of folks come on and talk about, family and those types of people. I wanted to talk about one actually because I did actually think about this quite a lot, and I thought like, who's like a friend or somebody who meant a lot to me in sort of the past couple of years. And I've had a weird sort of like transient life for the past 8 years or so, like moved country a bunch of times, moved cities a bunch of times. And the person I'm actually thankful for that I was thinking of is a guy I used to work with called Alexis.
Alexis, the guy you used to work with?
Yes, his name was Alexis Gajisa.
Gajisa.
Yes, he now works for Twitch, but he used to work at GameSpot, and he's basically the guy who built Giant Bomb.
Okay.
The website.
And so you're thankful for Alexis Gajisa, and let's start with let's start at the very beginning. Well, I won't ask why yet. Let me ask you about the very first time you met this person.
First time I met Alexis, I think I just moved over. So I basically moved to London, 8 years ago to try and get a job at GameSpot so that I could hopefully trick them into sending me to San Francisco and I could work at GameSpot in San Francisco.
That worked, right?
Like eventually,
yeah.
But it took like a good, 5 years. I failed interviews at GameSpot in UK 3 times. Once they didn't take me, twice they didn't interview me, and then at like 4th asking, I didn't even ask actually. They asked me, and then I was there, and then within 2 years I'd come over to, or 2.5 years I'd come to the US. So I had just arrived, and I felt like, oh my god, it's like happened. I can't believe like all this work and effort and super amounts of luck and people taking a chance on me. And I was a huge Giant Bomb fan, so I knew him already from his appearances on the couch on Giant Bomb. So I was basically coming as a fan.
All right.
But he had also like built GameSpot, so he had also watched all of my videos. So he was also kind of like a fan of what I was doing as well. So the first time we met was like really weird because it was like, oh, we like no intimate knowledge about each other, but we've never actually met before.
Oh yeah, let's talk about that. This is somebody you're a fan of, somebody whose work you followed, you admired, somebody who inspired you. You meet them, and they're impressed by you. And what's it like?
Well, it's just like you're dancing around the information that they're telling you something, and like, yeah, I remember you said that on like the Bombcast 2 weeks ago.
Did you actually say it?
Oh yeah, we were like super on the same level straight away. And I was a web developer by trade. I went to college as a web developer, and part of me sort of missed that work, and that's what he was doing. And he was also like, originally when I went to game, I typed videogames.com into GameSpot and into Google when I first got the internet, and GameSpot and IGN came up, and I thought GameSpot looked nicer.
Like that's you're why talking about the layout? Or
yes, the website, the form.
Okay.
And I was making websites I was actually making websites before we had the internet. So the idea of like building GameSpot to me was like this amazing like dream. So I was now meeting the person who not only I was a fan of, but also basically had my other dream job.
Okay, I want to go down a tangent for a second. I know tangents are dangerous to storytelling. We will get back to Alexis, but did you just say I was actually making websites before we had the internet?
So my brother, this is so sad. So my brother did computer science in Trinity College in Dublin.
Okay.
And one of the first things they did for CS students then was they'd give them a HTML book.
Okay.
So hypertext markup language, which used to be the sort of the backbone of the visual side of web coding.
Right.
And they basically say learn that in like a week and come back to us. Mm-hmm. And you've got like some sort of wraparound of like basic object oriented programming, and then they'll put them on Java. So he got this like HTML book and he learned it and did it, and then our parents had bought a PC so that he could do homework on it essentially, right? When he'd come back from Dublin. So he gave me this HTML book and said, I think you'd like this. And so I learned HTML, like making Notepad websites on my PC. But
just dropping tags into Notepad.
Yeah, like just head and body and making tables. And I made like a Half-Life 1 fan site was the first site I made. Okay. I made a clan site for, oh my God, I can't believe I just remembered this. Me and my two buddies who played Quake 3.
Okay.
We had a clan website.
Ooh.
Our clan was named after a gang in LA called the Uptown Buddy Boys.
Uptown Body Boys?
Buddy Boys.
Uptown Buddy Boys.
Yeah. The like the least intimidating gang name ever.
Wait, you and your Irish friends named your Quake 3 clan after an LA gang with a bad name.
Yes, and also
please don't come kill me.
And also the worst part was none of us, of the three of us in this clan, had both the combination of internet access and a copy of Quake 3.
Well, how did you have a clan in Quake 3 when you had no online connectivity?
We just like came to my house and played bots, and then we go to my friend Andy's and I'd bring Quake up there and we try and play Rocket Arena on dial-up.
This is fantastic.
Yeah, the internet was like real bad in Ireland for a while.
No, sometimes you just want to play a game, man. You go to NELX. I remember I didn't have a Nintendo for a long time, an NES, but I really wanted one. And as a kid, I think I've told this story before, I would sit and draw on the back of my school papers like video game levels, Super Mario levels,
and
then
awesome.
I would play them with my pen and move the guys around because I was so desperate to play. I'd make little sound effects real quiet. Yeah, so I can identify a little with this, nonetheless. So the Uptown Buddy Boys, which I totally think should be the name of your new band.
It's such a good name.
It's
like the worst gang name ever.
It really is incredible.
Yeah.
1 month later, Danny and Jared were mysteriously found in a ditch. Right. Uptown Buddy Boy.
With UBB tattooed on the back of their corpses. So I basically made these websites, and then like we got the internet like a year and a half later, I think, and yeah.
So were they any good?
The websites?
Yeah.
They're all right.
This was, you said Quake 3, so around 99?
Yeah, I guess it would have been 99, and then start of 2000 we probably got the internet, and it was basically practice, and then I found my first sort of like my own first company was I was making websites. I was undercutting real web design places by making websites for like local flower shops and local artists, and I basically just say like €500 and I'll make you a website, or 400 for the ones that looked at me for 2 seconds and I buckled. But it was great because I was living at home and I was like 16, 17 years old, so it was like easy money kind of.
So depending on the perspective, you were either scab labor or a budding entrepreneur.
Right, exactly.
Absolutely. Fantastic. So you were doing this. So you came, we'll shift back after that tangent. Sorry, back to Alexis. So you meet Alexis. He's familiar with you from your work in the UK. You're familiar with him from his work on Giant Bomb. What was that first meeting like? Where were you?
We went to Dada, which is the bar on 2nd and Mission, actually, just down the road from the game. I basically catty corner from One Up. Mm-hmm. It's right there. And him and Drew, they basically kind of, I think they subsequently kind of told me that they kind of knew that I was kind of all like, I don't know, like I was all right. They thought that I was like a person that they would get along with.
He's a pretty swell guy.
Yeah, they thought I was an okay dude. So we went for drinks.
A buddy boy.
Yeah, if you will.
From
Uptown. And we hung out. We had a lot to talk about back then because I just joined GameSpot, and he was kind of involved in GameSpot and Giant Bomb, and was sort of preparing me for all of the positives and negatives of working on a big website with lots of like internal politics and whatnot. And we got on like a house on fire. And then what happened was when I was looking for a place over the next couple of weeks, I knew that he lived up on sort of around Divisadero Street in SF.
Okay.
And I was looking for places all over the place. And then I found one spot that was quite nice. And I realized, it's actually not that far from Diviz.
Okay.
So I got it. And as it turns out, we were sort of both equidistant from this bar he used to like going to. And that became our sort of regular haunt then.
So you guys became bar buddies.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
So you worked together during the day. Now, with him at Giant Bomb and with you at GameSpot, how much did you actually see of each other? Because those are both CBS Interactive, of course.
Yes.
But how much did you see of each other during the day?
He kind of sat in the pit between... GB were on the other side of the office back then. And like I'd walk over and talk to them maybe like once every 3 days or something, or once every 2 days. And that was kind of... I was kind of one of the first. I think I might have been the first, except there was this one show that Chris Waters and Ryan Davis did together, but I think apart from that, after that had happened and sort of failed, I was one of the first like GameSpot people who was kind of on the reg going over there, and it was because I was such a massive fanboy. Alexis, on the other hand, he was kind of in the engineering pit, which was behind me, so he was kind of like 15 feet from me at all times, basically.
And his role there at that point was...
He was like lead web developer, or I don't know, whatever made up, title they give, engineering czar, I don't know.
Yeah, I like that one. Engineering czar is pretty good. That's I think my favorite like made up job name ever is the one they use at Disney, the Imagineers.
Oh, that's great.
I just love that.
Yeah.
It's just marvelous.
Then they have like senior Imagineers and like junior Imagineers.
Imagineers at large.
Yes, assistant to the Imagineer.
Imagineer about town.
Exactly.
These are delightful. So, assistant to the Imagineer.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Man, what would your title be if you could make up your own title? I mean, I
guess I can.
You run your own thing now. What could you? What's your title at NoClip? Have you made one?
Oh God, I haven't. I haven't done business cards yet.
What title should you make?
I guess it's weird, isn't it? Because you could go with you could be super lame and just go with like CEO.
You could.
Which I'm not sure if you're able to do for a sole proprietorship. Really, maybe not, because we're not incorporated yet. because if you do that and move states, it's a nightmare. So I decided not to bother because we're probably going to move next year. I don't know, what would I go with? Like, I feel like I'm not really a journalist. Editor. Like, I've always wanted to be a video editor. Okay. So the idea that, like, because I was a producer at GameSpot and I'm self-taught. I never learned how to edit in college. So yeah, I don't know. Editor, host/editor.
Something
like that.
I like that. All right, host/editor.
Same as yourself.
You heard it here first. Host/editor. Yeah, I haven't made up a title for myself yet. I think I'm going with. I don't know. What should I be? Maybe Viscount?
Marquis? That's good.
Marquis, perhaps? Marquis?
Right. Yeah, any type of Duke.
Duke? Earl? Duke of Earl? I think I'm the Earl of Soup.
That's good. I
Earl
like
of
that.
Soup. That's what I'm going for. Earl of Soup. So back to you and Alexis. The two of you work together, but you're also equidistant from this bar. This bar becomes your haunt. What drew you to the bar? Are you regular drinkers, one and both?
Yeah, probably like too much at this stage. Yeah. So I've kind of moved. I think what happened was, like, when I lived in London, I had like lots of friends that I kind of knew from back home in Ireland, and I had friends that I met, and I had colleagues and all this sort of stuff. And I think what had happened was when I moved over here, the distance from home, I think, weighed like way heavier in a way. Like, not only are you like far from home, but it's the time zone that really messes it up. Because when I was in London, I was the same time zone as back home in Ireland. So my brother and sister and nieces and nephews and parents were all in the same time zone, and like most of my friends were as well. And then suddenly I was in this situation where I'm not only in America, I'm actually on the arse end of America. So everyone's like, when I get up in the morning, they're all lunchtime, and when I go to sleep at night, they're all waking up.
They all exist mysteriously in the future.
It's really, and when you try and have a conversation with somebody who's like, when you're first thing in the morning, you wake up and you're trying to have a conversation with somebody who's like on their lunch break, you're never like vibing. You're never on the same page.
Yeah, when I was in Japan, it was very similar.
Right, yeah, same thing, right? Yeah. So probably similar time difference as well.
It was 14 hours.
Oh God, that's way worse. Okay,
It was awful.
So it was like isolating, right? So to have somebody and I have like a comfortable, safe place to go to with that person was like, it was like my sanctuary, which was bad because it was also a bar, and also because Alexis can drink anyone under the table. So
really,
yeah. So
he's the greater drinker of the two.
I don't know. Greater is like, greater or worse, which is maybe he drinks more. I'm not sure if that makes him a greater drinker.
Yeah, that's true. Depends on how you look at it. Yeah. More pickled.
Yes.
More seasoned.
Perhaps. Although I think I probably gave him a run for his money, for my shame. Oh. But yeah, we used to go there and grab nachos, and Drew lived around the corner and he'd sometimes come down as well. And yeah, we sort of met interesting people there and hung out. And
nachos and drinks, interesting people and hanging out.
Yeah.
So Alexis welcomed you. You knew him with some degree of intimacy because we live in this weird fantasy world where podcasts are kind of a glimpse into people's lives.
Yes.
So you knew. What did you know about him before you met him?
Outside of his personal, actually not much of his personal life. Now that you mention it, before I met him, like now I know like his wider family and his, we were both single back then and we're both like happily in relationships now, and I got married recently, and so we were sort of definitely more lonely and sort of in our own comfort together for a while. But he did a good job of. There is that thing, right, where you let people in a little bit, but you don't let people in too much when you're doing podcasts and whatnot, because you don't want to give out too much information sometimes. Or like, I'm an open book, but like maybe the people connected with me may not necessarily want to be as open as I am.
It is an odd dance.
Yeah.
You're telling the story of your life. Well, I mean, this whole show is about people sharing the stories of others.
Right.
And so, yeah, you do have to be guarded in that. It's I've never really thought about that part of it before. Well, I put you in a terrible position. Sorry about that, everyone.
No.
But when it comes to Alexis and this, so you meet this neat guy, you work in the same office, you go to this bar together, he knows some things about you, but you out of all the people you could have talked about tonight, you're talking about him as somebody you're truly grateful for, somebody you're thankful for. Why?
I think it was a mixture of two things. One, it was having somebody who felt like an old friend, that we immediately sort of vibed, and I had moved, I'd sort of had, I guess, the greatest accomplishment of my life up to that point, which is the job that I always wanted, right? And I'd sort of had that, and then on the other end of it, feeling a little bit empty and needing somebody to, like, I don't know, have somebody a bit that I could sort of feel comfortable with, right? So he was just a friend in one. And then the other thing was that, like, working at a big game website like that, especially when you're like, I came over with this like, wide-eyed idea that I was going to come over and like really help GameSpot and try and like, I don't know, impose the type of game website I thought this would always be onto this website and do my best. And Alexis had the same idea.
Okay.
And we were kind of like on point. Like we were kind of thinking in the same direction.
Okay.
And when, you know what it's like, you work in a big corporation, there's lots of influences, lots of politics, lots of things going on. Eventually I've left to start my own thing. So that shows you how sort of successful I was in trying to impose my will on GameSpot. But for the longest time, we were kind of, whenever we would, hit walls in work, then we would go back to the bar, talk about things, and it was almost like work therapy. That's where like we both talked ourselves through the different problems we had, be them interpersonal problems or like maybe just problems we had with projects that were entirely our own issue that we were trying to fix, or the sort of wider internal political struggles that happen in a company like that. We were kind of confidants in that respect. And I definitely needed that. When I came over here, I had fire coming out of my ears. I was super confident. I had success in the UK. I was basically the de facto face of the US site, even though I just turned up. So I was just like firing on all cylinders. And I think I needed him to like, kind of like, okay, all right, you don't burn yourself out. Don't like go off the rails here.
Can you give me an anecdote about a time he really helped you? And I understand internals might make that difficult. So if that's not possible, then I get it. But
I think he was. I'm just really bad at like recalling specifics, especially because most of them ended up with us getting drunk and walking home. There was one really bad. There was one. This might be the lowest point of us going out. Actually, was we had a night. Which it was actually good fun. And I walked home. I can't believe I'm telling the story. I walked home that night and. I was going to get a cab because it was a little bit late, but I didn't live that far away. But I decided not to. And I was running across the street and I tripped over like one of these like dividing lines in the road, right? And I like completely ate it, like hit my shoulder off the ground, my knee, and I was like, oh, and I was like, okay, no car hit me, that's good, because it was a quiet road, so I was all right. So I went home, went to bed, and I woke up the next morning and I felt fine. I woke up and I was like, what the fuck's going on with my hand? And I looked like at my elbow and I have like, it's like duct taped up. Like I've duct taped my whole arm up, but I'm like, what the fuck is going on here?
Duct taped your arm up drunk?
So I had so apparently I'd like cut my my elbow, but like not that bad, but like bad enough that it was bleeding. And I came home, I walked the rest of the way home, which was probably a good like 10 minutes, bleeding, and then wiped down my knee, which I'd also cut, and then in like the sort of haze of just wanting to go to sleep, wrapped a towel around my hand, duct taped it on, and then fell asleep. And I think that was probably the night after that. I remember telling him the next day, again at the bar, and with like a degree of shame, and he was like, yeah, that might be a bit much. Like, maybe don't do that again. I don't want to have to be the mom who's calling you every time you get home now. Mm-hmm. So I think I kind of eased off a little bit after that.
Backed you up off that a little bit?
Yeah.
I mean, do you drink too much now?
No, I think I have my wife to help me for that. I actually quit totally about right before we got married. For about 4 months I didn't drink at all, and that was great. Very sort of it's like if you like have a mathematics equation, you pull something out and you kind of see how everything works, you can kind of figure it out. And the same kind of thing was true, whereas like it wasn't until I removed it entirely out of the equation that I sort of realized when I was using it. To be honest, I have so much more control over my life now that I'm freelance, and a lot of the problems that I was kind of using alcohol more with to sort of, I don't know, make the days go a bit easier. That's been removed, thankfully. I think I'm happier working for myself and working on my own timeline. But yeah, I have a drink every now and again.
So you think that there for a while you were self-medicating?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, definitely. I know I have in the past. I know I definitely did in London when I first got the job at GameSpot, and then part of me thinks that whole time at Alexis I probably was as well. And the problem with being able to drink as well is that you get when you're able to get up in the next morning, and when it doesn't negatively impact relationships necessarily, or you don't have any, or in the case of Alexis, it makes them maybe better. And you know, you're young and you're spry and you can get up the next morning. You don't necessarily see it as a problem a lot of the time.
At that point.
Yeah, so that's the kind of worry with it. I think.
You're actually you're my third guest to talk about a bar buddy.
Right.
Yeah, I had Andrew and Marty on. I don't know if you know Andrew Goldfarb, Marty Silva.
Marty Silva, yeah.
Yeah, but they're bar buddies. That's their thing. And they came on and talked about that. So now you and Alexis, you're talking about another bar buddy. What makes a great bar buddy? What makes Alexis a great bar buddy?
Equal parts listening and talking. Like honesty, I think, is really important. I mean, the problem with bar buddies is that if you can remove the bar and still be buddies, I think that's probably a bit better, which is like important. And certainly the two of us kind of have our significant others now, and when we do find time for each other, it's never bars anymore. We always have like dinner with everyone. Let's talk about that
evolution then. Where did the relationship, the friendship, step out of the bar and into something else? How did that happen?
It happened because I stepped out of San Francisco and into the East Bay.
Okay.
And a bridge. I mean, it's a pretty big bridge.
It is. It's a huge bridge.
And when you leave work in the evening, and suddenly you're coming east across the bridge, it's there's less sort of social time for that. But what had happened was I basically met my future wife, and then very quickly moved in with her over in the East Bay, and like we were still working together and hanging out and having payday beers and just hanging out at lunchtime and stuff. And I think that transition kind of helped a bit because we weren't just always hanging out at bars. And then after a while, he found his lady, and then the amount of social time had gotten even smaller. So then we had to be very like intentional about when we hang out and what we did. So then it became like planning for events rather than just, it's Tuesday, I'll see you at Fly Bar.
So suddenly it's a date.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so so what are mandates with Alexis like?
It's usually like either if he comes over here, it's for like a UFC fight or something.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
I try and do it around sporting events. He doesn't really care about what sport it is necessarily. He just wants to hang out. And if it's over in his place, him and his lady are very good at cooking and whatnot. So they'll do a preparation of some sort. So yeah, that's kind of the way it usually goes now.
What makes this guy a good friend?
I'm weird with friends where I don't like. I have lots of like people I know, but there's very few people. This is probably very common. There's like I have like 2 people, 3 people who I'll like regularly want, or I'll have that deep relationship with, and even then I won't see them all the time. Okay. Like I'll see them once every couple of weeks.
But you feel a sense of intimacy with them?
Yes.
Okay.
And like he was my I wouldn't say best man, but when we got married and did the sort of registry office marriage, he was my witness. Okay. Alexis, he was like he's the guy when you just like need to hang out, call him up, and he'll be there the next day. Just like reliable. And I think similarly, he doesn't let a lot of people in, so we had that like similar kind of, I don't know, like if we didn't see each other for 5 years, we'd see each other and then be totally cool again.
Can you in any way qualify that simpatico? Like why the two of you just have this liking for each other that seems to have been there from the very beginning?
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I think we're just similarly tuned, like very kind of negative about a lot of things, but then also like I think we're problem solvers. I think the two of us see like our professional lives and our personal lives as these like problems to solve, and sometimes the problem is us. Okay. And we're sort of complicit in it. Oh. And I think for the longest time both of us enjoyed being complicit in being our own problems, and I think professionally we sort of both enjoyed, we were like very what's the word, like put a lot of effort into our careers, but then also we're very frustrated by them in some ways. Like it was never enough. And I think that sort of drive and ambition, I guess is probably the word, regardless of ability, certainly our ambition was kind of like similar that way. And then, yeah, just like all the things that make a good friend, similar sense of humor, you know, both fans of video games, that certainly
that never hurts.
You know, helps to have a common interest.
Do you play a game together?
Nah, he likes shitty games.
Oh, really?
No, he plays a lot more online games than me. We hardly ever played together. Actually, he playing like he gets into like Destiny and stuff, and I'll just like I just want to play Fallout for like on my own, or I'll play Rocket League or something, or so that we hardly ever
have
play.
Vastly different tastes. It sounds like.
In games. Yeah, we hardly ever play with each other. He'd text me. He'd be like, "Oh, we're getting on to play," and I'd be like, "Yeah." But I'm so bad at that. Yeah. I'm really bad at like appointment friendships. Okay. Like being there at certain times. Like this is why I have like people who I only ever see once every 3 or 4 weeks. So that's why he's a good friend. Because like most people would just be like, "Oh, Danny's like super unreliable. Like I'm not going to be friends."
It's like
with him.
No, it's okay. He's cool with it. You talked about complicitness a little earlier. You said the two of you feel like could be complicit in parts of your lives that both of you felt like sometimes you were solving a problem, sometimes you were the problem.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little more about that idea?
Sure. I think this kind of goes back because I had like OCD and stuff growing up, and like whenever I think about that, and I think about especially when we talk about like the self-medication and just like whenever you're in like a spiral, I always was able to get out of these relatively quickly. I kind of like when I had the tools to like get rid of my OCD, the therapist gave me, I felt like I was like, oh, I can get out of this now. And I always felt the same way with like alcohol, for instance, that like, oh, like this is actually something I can stop if I want to. And that's obviously like very, very dangerous thing to think. And obviously it's not true as well. But then it sort of can be true. You can kind of, if you just wake up one morning and decide not to do it, certain people can get out of it. So I never really felt like I had like a problem, but I obviously did have a problem because I'm saying I didn't have a problem, right? But to answer your question a bit more accurately, I think when you feel like you have control over the problems in your life, it's more, it's less anxious than if you feel there are problems in your life that you don't have control over. Mm-hmm. So maybe there's a problem in your life that you don't have control over. So if you just override that with a problem, say for instance, going to a bar every night and drinking, that you feel like you do have control over it, then I think that makes you feel a little bit more in control of your life. And I think that was probably something that the two of us kind of had, in that like there were lots of things we didn't have control over. We didn't have control over our careers necessarily in the ways we wanted, which is why we were having these conversations. We certainly didn't have control over our love lives. We were both single and you know, looking and not particularly happy about it. So I think that probably having that little shared like little issue was probably comforting in a strange way.
So in a way, your friendship, in addition to its other facets, if I'm understanding this correctly, was quite literally therapeutic?
Oh, totally. Yeah. We were like, without him, I feel like it would have been much more isolating living here. And outside of like any sort of just therapeutic aspect of it, it was also just like fun. Like I just loved hanging out. It was great. And I always felt better for having hung out than if I hadn't, although also hung over.
How did you help him?
I don't know. I feel like similarly. I think almost like a mirror. Like maybe I'm wrong, because I mean maybe I'm just being selfish thinking that way. But I feel like similarly the issues that he sort of had with work, that I was able to like sort of. He was able. A lot of the time we were just bouncing ideas off each other. Like half of therapy is just talking, right? Mm-hmm. It's so getting it out there, and ultimately you kind of, a lot of the time you figure out the answer just by talking about it, right? Yeah. So, and I think that was a lot of it for us, was just even being able to talk about it, because you were basically in situations where you're biting your lip the whole time. So if you're in a situation where you didn't have to anymore, then it was liberating. So
that's fascinating. Yeah, you were upfront about obsessive compulsive disorder and therapy for that. I'm in therapy. I've struggled with mental health issues my entire life. So some of the things you're talking about, that they make sense to me, and I think they're going to make sense to a lot of the audience. It's a theme we've talked about on the show before, and will again. Before we move to the end of the talking about Alexis, one other thing I want to ask: what's he up to right now?
Alexis works for Twitch now.
Okay.
He is one of their, I don't know, engineering czars over there.
That's the title again, the engineering czar.
Probably, actually. Yeah. They're a startup, so they can call them whatever they want.
That's true.
Yeah, he's working there. He's doing good. He's happily in a relationship and doing good things, and still living in the same house and doing good.
What's your next date?
I don't know, actually, probably not till after Christmas, because it's because this Doom thing takes forever to edit, and then
Doom thing, you say?
Oh yes, sorry, that was a sly plug.
No, plug away. Plugs are welcome.
So my company NoClip, we make we basically, it's a crowdfunded through Patreon gaming outlet that makes sort of long form documentaries about video games. So we did one about Rocket League last month. It's like an hour-long feature in 2 parts about the sort of history of that game getting made. And at the moment, I've been working on, for the past 3 weeks, a deep dive into Doom 2016, the id Software sort of rebirth of Doom, but also looking at what had happened over the past 10 years with its development with the previous version, which was we've never seen before, and the sort of like reshuffle that happened, and also the design of the game. But it, what it's like, Patreon, small teams, you gotta hustle, so I'm working my ass off.
Congratulations on this. This is fantastic. When's it going up?
The video will be up 6 days from now, Monday.
Okay, so 6 days from when we're recording now. So what is today? This
Tuesday the 6th.
So it may be up, depending on when this goes up. It may be up already by the time we run this. Like, where can people go find it?
And NoClip Video.
NoClip Video
on YouTube. If you go to NoClip Video, type NoClip into YouTube, you'll get it basically. And patreon.com/Danny O'Dwyer for the rest of all that goodness.
For people who want to support you financially. Yes. And you should, because he makes great stuff.
Thank you so much.
No, you do. You make wonderful things. There's no hyperbole there at all. You do great work.
Super blown away by the support. It was, it was what I was hoping we might get to at some stage in 6 months down the road. But the initial funding has made it so that we're doing some big projects early 2017 as well. It's gonna be good.
I felt the same way with this little podcast, which is kind of something I do in my evenings and weekends and enjoy. I could not fathom the outpouring of support from people. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. And give Danny money, because he's really great.
Or just watch the videos. Support comes in many forms.
Okay.
So if you even just subscribe to the YouTube channel and enjoy some advertising free, influence free ass reporting on video games.
Subscriptions, you say?
I know, right?
Hey, subscribe. People can also subscribe to Pockets Full of Soup. Okay, we're going to stop doing this. We're going to transition over. By the way, if you want to send messages to the show, messages of thank you for people in your lives, just chat with me about whatever, you can send those to mail@pocketsfullofsoup.com. That's mail@pocketsfullofsoup.com. I'd also like to take a moment to thank our Patreon producers, Robert Nieder and Nick Rie, both of whose generous support makes this show happen. So thank you guys so much, and to all of you who give, subscribe, watch, listen, comment, at all, etc. Thank you for that. Now we transition. Okay, now I don't have my notebook tonight. I'm a little scared. I've been trying this high-tech technology thing here.
Telephone. It's an iPod.
Yeah, this be the Android.
Oh no.
I gave up on my iPhone a few months ago.
I thought you were gonna say the Samsung Galaxy Note 7.
No, this is
airport
a Moto,
friendly.
I think this is a Moto. But yeah, I switched over. I decided to try it out, and you know what? I like it.
Yeah, it's been alright.
I like it a lot.
It's hard. New pair of pants. I don't know if they're gonna fit right. And after a while, you get that groove in.
Gonna be honest with you, I like it more than the iPhone.
Yeah. Probably costs a lot less.
There's that too. That doesn't hurt either. It actually does everything and more. Okay, so we got some questions for you, Danny.
Okay.
Before we jump into the Instant Noodle questions, a few questions from people, also a couple of thank you messages to read. John Bailey wants to know, is there a better Irish footballer than George Best?
Oh, this is an interesting one, because Georgie Best is from the north of Ireland. So this is one of these situations where Northern Ireland's weird, right? Where like the English or the British sometimes take ownership of Northern Irish athletes and famous people and whatnot, and it's like that's kind of okay. But then so do the Republicans. So I kind of feel a little bit messed up, like taking ownership of George Best as an Irish footballer, because maybe it's not my right because he's Northern Irish. So he's definitely the best Northern Irish footballer. If you were to combine Northern Irish and Republic of Ireland footballers and ask who is the best, he is also the best. So yes.
Okay. So he's the best either way. Ooh,
yes.
What a tactical answer that was.
You got to be careful about this sort of stuff. It's like
there's a place for you in politics. I think that was answered.
There's enough. Read my tweets. There's no place for me in politics anymore. Although who knows? Now.
Interesting distinction. I've heard this many. I've watched Footballers' Wives. But in Europe it's footballer. In America, we say football player for an American football player.
Right.
Why? I wonder why the difference in the terms there. Do you know why? Because if you said football player in England, it would sound weird, right?
Yeah, I don't know. But there's so many of that nuance. Like people say when I come over here, like my wife always says that I edge out my sort of idioms and I tend to like my phrases become more American over time. And the same thing was true when I moved to England, where you just ran that stuff off, because there's nothing worse than saying something and people going, what? You know, it's very like it's like slapping a child. It teaches something when that happens, and you just kind of stop doing it. So I don't even think about it anymore.
No, I get that. Moving overseas and moving back,
right.
and saying a bunch of Japanese words American style,
yes,
there, and getting funny looks. Realizing, for example, just learning that Tokyo is 2 sounds instead of 3. Right. Saying Tokyo to my friends in Japan and being like, what? And
then you come back here and you say it the Japanese way, and they're like, you're being one of those people.
Exactly. Then you're Ross Geller and you're going karate. And karaoke is the hardest one because it's karaoke. It's karaoke in America.
Oh, what is it?
If you say karaoke. But if I say karaoke or if I say karaoke in Japan, they're like, what?
Yeah.
What do you want to do? Come back here, and I've got to switch it back. But I forget sometimes, and every time I say it, I get made fun of. I was at a meeting at IGN the other day, and Zach made so much fun of me because I wasn't thinking, and I said Drakwe before which is Dragon Quest, and
oh my god,
he's just and the 5 minutes later we're talking about Twilight Princess, and he's like, "Don't you mean Twilight?" And I was just like, "Darn it!" So yeah, I know, I feel your pain a little.
Yeah, we all do it, right?
Absolutely. Brett wants to know, what other subjects would you make documentaries of other than video games?
Oh, God. I mean, with NoClip, I won't do anything other than video games because I feel like there are so many stories to tell that I'm forever going to be chasing that sort of that list. And I really do feel like if I could keep doing this for the rest of my life, I'd be happy. So I want to keep doing that. But God, if I could tell any other story, I'd love to do one with my brother. My brother, it's really weird because I said earlier he did computer science in college and I did web development, or multimedia applications development. Both of us now work in video editing, which is totally bizarre to me. He's 6 years older than me. He works for the Irish national television broadcaster, and he does sports. He does montages before big sporting events.
Yeah, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, here's the thing, and he does those, but he does these super emotional, evocative ones about old, Irish sporting rivalries, or when we played, South Africa in rugby and New Zealand. He does, and they always get posted on all the blogs of have you seen the latest montage? Blah, blah. So he's super talented at that, and I'm doing kind of similar stuff on video games. So if I could do any other documentary, I would do something to do with sports with my brother.
Oh, that's
really love
cool.
To do that.
I should do that.
Yeah, that'd be super fun.
I mean, you got all the spare time, right? Running a small business all by yourself. I'm sure you have tons of time right now.
Easy peasy. Yeah, maybe that's the pipe dream. Maybe someday.
Sounds fantastic.
Something small, but good. I love small stories that don't get told.
Where can people go see your brother's stuff?
Oh God, he's O'Dwyer AJ on YouTube or something. He's really bad at posting them.
Okay.
They're just spattered all over the internet. I just find them.
All right.
If you ever look up an RTE is the name of the Radio Television, is the Irish broadcaster. If you look up RTE montages for rugby, they're basically all his.
That's very fun. Anthony wants to know, how's Patreon changed your life? Being able to see how many people love you and support you.
It's you can speak to this, right? It's crazy. It's crazy. It's nothing. I wanted to do this type of stuff basically for a decade, this type of reporting about games, and it was never possible until this. I mean, it was possible some way, but to do it the really stupid, pure way that I wanted to do it, with no advertising and no, sponsored deals or any of that stuff, it wasn't really possible until Patreon came out. It's like when Square came around and suddenly food trucks could take credit cards. Remember that? It was what?
I can pay for food?
And suddenly it just opened the floodgates. And the same things happen. It's you remove a barrier for people, and it becomes so much easier. And it's changed everything. Down from my wife works, she doesn't work on Monday to Friday. She works different days. So now I get to hang out with her when she's off on a Thursday. I couldn't, before, if she was working a weekend, then I wouldn't see her for a week and a half. And that fucking sucked, right? And then being able to completely focus all my effort on the passion projects, instead of having to do my sort of my churn videos during the week on GameSpot, and I love doing that stuff as well. And GameSpot was great to me, and I really can't complain about anything there. And I miss a lot of my friends there, but like being able to like as somebody who like the pure sort of artistic side of it, to be able to focus on that is like crazy incredible. To be able to like dive in, like I've spent like the past week basically editing this thing. Yeah. It's crazy to be able to spend that time doing that. But it's like, it just, by the end, you're left with this thing that's like, this could not have been better if I was working at GameSpot.
Created a new kind of economics for your life.
Right, totally.
It's fantastic.
It's nuts. I'm super indebted to it.
Yeah, I can't say enough nice things about Patreon and the really nice people who work there.
Yes.
They're delightful human beings. Hi, Heather.
Yes, Heather Wilder is an absolute saint.
What's that?
Heather is an absolute saint.
Yeah.
She's incredible.
They're extraordinary. And we'll let you answer that, and I'll talk about that some other time, but they've changed my life as well in some pretty great ways. Tony wants to know if you've ever experienced racism while living in the U.S.
That is an interesting question. No, I haven't.
Okay.
I thought I did in England because of the Irish. My sister, you grow up in Ireland, and this is going to be a long answer.
Okay, I'm all right with that.
You grow up in Ireland, and your sort of idea of persecution is like it's in your history books, it's in television, it's in the stories your aunt and uncle tell you about when they lived in England. It's in my sister when she was a bartender in Brighton, and when the IRA did a bomb, she was told to feck off back to Ireland by everyone there and had to go home. I used to talk to my friend Timur Hussain, who's now editor in GameSpot UK. The two of us, I started a video game website before I moved to London, and I met him on the GameSpot forums, and we ended up becoming good friends. And he's born in Pakistan, and we used to joke that it used to be my lot who everyone thought was a terrorist, but when I moved to England, actually they were okay with the Irish, but now it's the Pakistanis that they thought were terrorists. But the thing was it was way harder for them to lose that, because at the end of the day, Irish people are white. And I didn't realize, I moved to London and I couldn't get a job forever. I couldn't get a job for 5 weeks. I thought it was because I had a super Irish name, and I'd never worked in England, and weirdly enough, the only person who gave me an interview was a Catholic from Northern Ireland. So in my head, I was thinking, oh, that's why they didn't want to employ me, because I'm Irish, and I had like a real sort of bee in my bonnet about that. And I joined this football team, the Star Bethnal Green, like a soccer team, and I used to go to games all the time with the manager, the guy who got me on, Chris, because we lived in the same part of town. So we'd go to games all the time, and then after our games, we'd take a cab home sometimes, because we were going back to the same part of town.
Okay.
And I remember, I was like a year into playing for this team, and like a year and a half into living in London, and we're going home one day, and we're getting the cab, and he says to me, he was laughing, and he was like, "You're gonna have to get the cab, mate. They're not gonna stop for me." Mm-hmm. And he is like 4th generation English, like his grandmother was born in England, and he's black, and he was saying to me that I'm going to have to be the one that gets the cab, and it like blew my mind. And I think that's when I realized that even though I had been like raised from a young age that like I was the one that the English didn't like, I was the Irish guy, and I was still getting the fucking cab because I was white. So I have never experienced racism in this country, and even when I thought I was in England, someone else was getting it way, way worse than I was.
Thank you for that perspective.
No worries.
I really appreciate you sharing that. That's thoughtful. Thank you, Danny, for that.
No worries. It was a real like educative moment that I could not have had from someone telling me. I had to happen, and like the penny dropped so hard.
Those moments in life that kind of jar you and you never can go back from.
Totally.
Yeah. Brandon says, I don't have a question. I just want to hug you. Let's see.
Internet hug, Brandon.
Jean-Marc wants to know, what place haven't you traveled to yet that you really want to?
Oh, Japan. Oh, Japan.
Oh, you never been to Japan, Danny?
Never been to Japan.
Oh, we got to go to Japan.
Love to go to Japan.
We got to do that. Yeah. I love me some Japan. I lived there for almost 3 years.
Yeah.
And where are you going to go first?
I don't know anything. Wait, so do you know Justin Haywald?
Yeah, we ended up in a lift together for about 45 minutes telling Japan stories.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was in the back of a car together telling Japan stories. And it was a lot of fun. He was much more diligent than I was. Justin used his time well.
Right.
He learned Japanese. He focused himself. I goofed off and had fun and got fun stories and did nothing useful and had a great time doing it.
Good stuff. Well, that's what I want to do when I go to Japan. Then.
Yeah, you got it. Absolutely got to do it.
We're talking to some people about doing some docs there next year, so
no kidding.
I'm hoping to double up.
viewers and listeners to the show and that have seen me on other places, Comedy Button or IGN, know that I like to talk about Japan a lot. But no joke. When you go over, I can send you a couple of pretty groovy places you might miss otherwise.
Yes, I would absolutely adore that. Absolutely. Local knowledge is so important.
It helps a little. Although it's been 5 years. I haven't been there in years. So maybe they're all gone now. We'll see. Got a thank you here from Josh, who says, I want to thank my wife Melissa for too many reasons to list, but the support and happiness she gives me daily is a start. So there's one for you. Stegosaurus wants to know, have you ever been to Scotland?
Oh, this is so sad. I've never been.
No,
and and literally, like, me and my wife are, like, last night we're like planning, because we're going to England in June after E3 next year. I'm doing some filming, and we're going to go to Harry Potter, and my dad's birthday's around then. Yeah, we got tickets to the Cursed Child.
That's great.
We're going to go to that. Yeah, that was a rough internet queue to try and get those. But I've actually never been to Scotland. I went to Wales a week before I moved to San Francisco for the first time.
Okay.
To Swansea, and it was awesome. Went to a game actually. But I've
how's
still
Wales?
never been. Wales is great. Wales is so like Ireland. It's crazy.
Yeah.
The way people act, the accents, the fact that everything's like written, well, not the accents necessarily, but like just the weirdness of the accent. The fact that like everything's written in Welsh first and English second is the same in Ireland. Everything's written in Irish first and English second.
Okay.
So yeah, very rural. It's super like that. But I'm dying to go to Scotland.
I hope that you have a good time when you go.
Absolutely. Use my accent.
Another thank you here from Adam. Thank you to the staff of Beaumont Hospital in Troy, Michigan. My wife just delivered our firstborn on Saturday.
Congratulations.
Yeah, wonderful care. He said,
That's
congratulations.
awesome. Yeah.
Congratulations, Adam. Oh, my goodness. First child. That's fantastic. Felipe's,
very scary, I'm sure.
What's that?
Very scary prospect, I'm sure.
Oh.
Going to the hospital
paternity?
with the first child.
Or maternity.
Yeah, maternity.
Yeah, I think good point. Yeah, now I just feel ashamed. Paternity's scary. Maternity sounds even more frightening on the way to the hospital. Goodness gracious. Someone, I'm sure you've probably met this person at least once. Lucy James wants to know, do you miss us?
I miss London a lot, and I miss all the people there. They're good people. I'm looking forward to going over with my wife next year and sort of like filling in the gaps. One of my favorite things to do is to bring my wife places that she wasn't, that I didn't know her before at, because it feels like I'm basically like painting her into my past a bit.
Oh, wow.
And especially when you meet somebody when you're in your like your late 20s, there's so much of a history you've had before, and like who you were as a person. So to me, London is like one of the last vestiges of that, where I get to like, you know, show the most important person in your life the places that made you, right?
And now you get to share that.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that next year.
Lucy also wants to know, if you're at E3, do you want me to bring you some tattoos or tatoes? What's a tato?
You can buy, it's okay. You don't have to bring them. Thank you, though. You can actually get them in San Francisco. If you go down to the Fisherman's Wharf, there is a Irish shop, and tatoes are the most delicious, you would call them, chips in the world.
Chips, okay. So
crisps.
They're crisps, and okay, that's right.
In Ireland as well.
I figure, you guys, you win. You were there first. You get to call them what you want.
No, I wasn't there at all. Huh? They forced that language on us.
Oh,
we were
that's true.
I don't know
what
point. We called them. Protee? Is protee chips in Irish? I forget.
I don't know. I'm just flashing to.
It's like potatoes. Same word probably.
My ignorance of Ireland. I want to go so bad. I'm just flashing to Frank McCourt. That's probably half the.
Which was that from?
To Angela's Ashes.
Oh yes, sorry, yeah.
Angela's Ashes, Tis, things like that. But,
super fun anecdotes in those books.
Oh yeah,
always a good time.
Really uplifting.
Jesus,
those stories. All right, here's the instant noodle questions. What is best sandwich?
Oh, I'm really enjoying peanut butter and jelly at the moment. Actually,
really?
Yeah, PB&J is good. Yeah.
White wheat, rye. What do you like yours?
Sourdough.
Yeah. Nice.
You don't really get PB&J in outside of America, I think, generally. Not in England, anyway.
Okay.
It's a very American thing because jam is different. It's not the gelatin version. It's more like a preserve in Europe. So yeah, but it's good. Yeah,
you like the PB&J?
PB&J is good.
Do you go with the grape, or are you a different kind of?
The grape what?
With the jelly. What kind of jelly?
Oh, like a strawberry.
I'm a strawberry guy myself. Yeah, that's a veteran move right there. Right. I approve.
Just like the cartoon picture of it.
Yeah.
Although now I want to try the grape one.
Oh, the grape's good.
Yeah?
Grapes. PB&J grape's good, but I still prefer strawberry.
Okay.
Myself. But some people are. My wife's diehard grape jelly.
Oh, really?
PB&J. Oh yeah, she's like that's the only way.
She's not having any of that red shit.
I mean she'll eat it, but not on PB&J.
Right.
She'll eat that with a spoon out of the jar.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Man, she came home one day and caught me eating preserves out of a jar with a spoon. It was.
I know the things we do when we think no one's watching.
Oh, it was very bad.
And we all do them.
What's the best song written in the last 100 years?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we throw them at you.
Oh
fast.
yeah, no, that's a really hard one. Where am I going to go with this? Minerva by Deftones.
Wow, that's a great pick.
Yeah, I like that song.
What about Minerva? What strikes you? Can you qualify it at all?
Everything I love about Deftones is how like every song they play sounds like it's being played on the side of a mountain. It's just like airy. It's so airy, and there's something about Minerva has this sort of like religious vocal like lyrics in it, which are, and as an atheist, as somebody who could grow up like staunch Catholic, and like my sort of rejection of Catholicism was probably like one of the most traumatic times of my life, and I'm super atheist now, but even that song, the way it's like the line like God bless you all on this earth, that whole part of it like reminds me of why I loved being religious without making me feel like it's preaching to me.
That's so
I really like that song.
No, I like that a lot. I also, when you said, I've never heard the word super atheist before, and I just got this image of the world's like just, I don't know, it's like Neil deGrasse Tyson with like a giant like A on his chest, like in a cape. I thought it would just be amazing.
Like a super atheist is basically like you're basically a theist again, but just for like nega god or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's like some kind of like strange superhero. I don't know. It's what's the first word you think of when you hear the sound of your own voice?
Edited.
I know what industry you work in.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
What's your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Strawberry cheesecake.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that's lovely. There's this fast food chain in the American Southeast that makes strawberry cheesecake milkshakes.
I had one of those in Texas. I had a red velvet cake milkshake in what's the cool city in Texas? Austin.
That'll do.
That was amazing.
That'll do right there.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a whole day's calories right
Yes,
there.
that is. That'll kill you. Oh, it's good.
I had it with a burrito.
That's Wilford Brimley right there. Yeah. Diabetes.
I get that reference.
There we go. See, I get that reference. I get so few of them. What's the most terrifying creature in the natural world?
Oh God, man.
Man. That's our second most popular choice.
Spiders.
Spiders is first. Man is second. And it's
probably cockroaches too.
Ooh.
I lived above a was it Liberian? Moroccan food shop. I think it was in South London for a very short amount of time. But we had loads of cockroaches in the house.
Just because there was so much food upstairs.
Yeah, downstairs it was. Yeah, the shop was.
Oh wow,
it was real bad. I woke up one night with like something hissing.
Oh
yeah, it was the most terrifying thing that's ever happened.
You had a cockroach hissing in your ear.
In my ear, I thought it was like in my ear, but I think it was like it was. You know when you hear something and you don't wake up. And then when you wake up because of it, you realize you've been listening to it for like 10 minutes. That happened with a cockroach hissing in my ear.
You had a cockroach giving you a lullaby. That's not okay.
Yeah, I heard it scutter across the ground. Yeah, I could hear its feet. It's so bad.
Oh, it's so terrible. I don't like it at all. Oh, that's gross. I do not like roaches.
No.
What's your favorite word?
Galore.
Great word.
It's Irish too.
Galore's? Really? That's Irish? What's it mean in Irish? Same thing?
It's two words. G-O, and then L-E-O-I-R. Galior. It means a lot of.
A lot of?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's living, yeah.
I did not. Thank you for educating us.
No worries. Another good one of those is smithereens. You know when something gets blown to smithereens?
Blown to smithereens, yeah.
Schmitter is like pieces, and een literally means small.
Whoa!
So smithereen is like means small pieces.
Well, that's kind of glorious as
well. Isn't that cool? Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Any other Irish vocabulary?
That's about it. Then it's just place names what's the city the Wire's in again? Baltimore.
Yeah.
Town of tall houses. Ballytimore.
I did not know that.
It's a town in Cork in the south of Ireland. Yeah. There's loads of those.
Just tripling up on this stuff. Who's first kiss?
Oh God, I can't remember her name.
No.
No.
Do you remember how it was?
It was in a theme park in Birmingham.
Yeah?
She was like my cousin's babysitter. We all went to some theme park. It was like some shitty water park in Birmingham in the north of England. I used to stay with my aunt for like a couple of weeks during the summertime. I completely forgot her name.
She was your cousin's baby. Was she older than you, or
no? Same age. She was like 13 or something. 12. Can't remember. It was on one of these like knockoff English. You know what it was? It was like the Brummie version of Pirates of the Caribbean.
I'm sorry, Brummie?
Brummie is like Birmingham. If you're from Birmingham.
Okay.
Birmingham is in like Midlands of England, like on the way to Manchester. And if you're and it was in, I forget the name of the place. It was, people in Birmingham will know. It wasn't Legoland. It was the other one. Oh no, Legoland, that was at Windsor. That wasn't close to Birmingham. Was it Windsor it was? I forget what it was.
I have no idea.
Anyway, I can't remember. But it was, we went on the trip, like we clearly like wanted to, and like neither of us had kissed before. So we went out like 6 times, and on the 6th time I like had the gumption to do it.
All right.
But I literally can't remember anything else.
Can't remember anything else about it.
Pirates, that's all.
Cake or pie?
Pie, but pie is different to me because pie is both savory and sweet now.
Okay, that's okay.
Because you guys have like sweet pies, like pecan pies and stuff. And if I was choosing just those over cake, I would still pick pies. But also in England, you got like your steak and ale pie. Yep. You got like all those savory pies, and those are amazing.
We actually do have a small tradition of savory pies here, just in the wrong part of the country for
East Coast.
Yeah. If you get in the Midwest, you'll find what are called pasties.
Oh, that's a Cornish pasty is like an English thing. Do you know about those? The pasties?
The Cornish pasties?
So originally they were sweet on one side and savory on the other.
That I did not know.
Because the miners used to have them. It was their dinner.
I didn't.
So they'd have dinner on one side and dessert on the other.
That's awesome.
I went to a delicatessen in my hometown, had Cornish pasties, and I was like, oh, I'd never seen Cornish pasties. And lo and behold, the lady serving them was from Cornwall, and she told me that story.
That's really cool. It's like a self-baked bento box.
Right?
That's incredible.
Isn't that amazing? Okay. Although you have to work in a mine to get them.
There is that. Yeah, and that maybe not so fun. I've known coal miners.
So really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I grew up in the right part of the country to still know some West Virginia coal miners before they were all shut down.
That's incredible.
Yeah. I knew one guy that told me the story of how they used to go up in the slate piles. They would pull, they'd strip mine and they'd pull slate out of the hills and they'd stack the slate because it was useless. And the slate was just razor sharp, and they would stack it up, 50, 60, 70 feet tall in these huge hills. And they didn't get, when they didn't have snow, they would take improvised sleds and they would sled down the slate piles.
Because it's so slick.
Yeah. Exactly. Now, if you fell off, it would cut you to ribbons.
Oh, that's awful.
But they would still do this as kids, and they would sled down the slate piles and then climb back. Yeah.
Wow.
Dark and you know anything about Matewan, any of that stuff?
No.
Oh man, that's a Frank McCourt kind of story right there.
It's also a Wikipedia entry, probably.
It probably is. Go learn about Matewan. Yeah, that's some fun stuff. Last question. I always ask this at the end. What's one question you got for me? You want to ask on here?
If you could do one other job than what you do now, what would it be?
If I could live in that tiny elite circle of human beings that write fiction for a living, that's what I do. I would kill to be one of the world's 6 novelists.
Right. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. I mean, in an ideal dream world, I would write for a living. I'd write books. I'd write screenplays. I'd write short stories. I'd write essays and articles.
What would you write? What would you write about?
My first book is 2/3 done, probably. Well, I've written several things that weren't good enough to publish.
Right.
But the first one is a children's book called Lucy in the Dark, which actually is a story my wife and I came up with together.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that I'd really like to finish someday. After that, I think I'd probably jump around. There's a thing called Flyover Country I've wanted to write for a long time.
Okay.
Which is a kind of a suspense horror story set in 1970s America in the Midwest about a serial killer driving from place to place in the middle of nowhere and just killing people who live alone in the middle of empty spots.
Yeah.
Having spent a lot of time in empty, lonely places, I want to write about that person we were all afraid of actually being out there.
Right, okay.
The person your parents were always warning you about. I wrote a horror novel once. It's not very good that I'd really like to take another pass at about a funeral home in Georgia. A lot of things.
Excellent.
And probably more children's fiction too, or young adult children's era.
Right.
I have a friend who's a teacher who says young adult is just a marketing code word for books people actually read,
Right, yeah.
which I love.
Yeah, it's like the guilty pleasure title they put on, whereas like so many movies that are just like action is what you call, but like still have drama in them and still have interesting characters and whatnot.
Exactly, and I love just jumping around. So I know we're all supposed to write in genre, but I love what people like Cormac McCarthy are able to do.
Right.
They don't write genre fiction. They're actually able. He can write a suspense crime story, and then he can write a post-apocalyptic novel, and then he can write All the Pretty Horses.
Yeah.
And somehow he's allowed to do that. That's the kind of writer I'd like
amazing.
to be, where I'm not locked into.
Yeah, it's like Spielberg or something. There's like so few people that are able to do that.
Yeah, and I'm not good enough, but I wish. I mean, I'm not. Cormac McCarthy's in another plane of existence for the rest of us, but. Thanks for asking. That's kind of you. I appreciate
that's I always feel really I have a lot of empathy for writers because you don't choose the form that you want to work in. And when I worked in web development, it was projects would take months to finish.
Yeah.
And then they also kind of like they died very slow deaths where websites exist and the future breaks them slowly, and you try and fix them, and they're that's it. They get worse and worse, and eventually you just have to let them go.
Kind of melt. Yeah.
Whereas video, I can edit a video in a day, or I can edit these videos take forever, but they're still going to be done in a couple of weeks, right? Books take so long.
Yeah.
And people ask me, one of the things people ask me a lot is, when we produced the Rocket League videos and there were 2 half-an-hour videos, and people said, oh, why didn't you just make it an hour? Like, making an 1 hour long video is exponentially more difficult than making 2 half-an-hour videos because of pacing and because of like the way in which you tell the narrative. So if you like extrapolate that for a book and make it that big, like, I think writing is such I'm terrible at writing. I think people like you who can write are unbelievably talented, but I also mourn for the fact that if you want to make the thing you want to make, you're basically saying, I'm going to climb this mountain for like years and do it.
I've written enough long form bad work to know how hard it is, because I've written things that aren't good enough, and it's not like that fake modesty thing. I read this like, this is awful, but the second thing I wrote was better. I was like, I learned a lot doing that, but it is hard. And the other part is, I mean, man, nobody makes a living at it.
No.
Nobody. I mean, just the economics of things like health insurance.
Right.
I harp on that a lot, but in a world without Obamacare, how are you a novelist unless you're selling millions of copies?
Yeah, totally.
Because you can't afford to live.
And crowdfunding doesn't really facilitate it. I know, like Amanda Palmer, for instance, has done is the most successful, I believe, Patreon on it, but it doesn't really work because you're basically talking about asking people to commit to something which is going to take like years, and it's also, you can't piecemeal it. You can't say, oh, here's a snippet, or here's a chapter.
Because that's how it works.
It doesn't work that way. It's an old medium that like is the way it is.
It is, yeah. I mean, the fans of my show that are patrons at a certain level get my silly vampire stories, but I wrote them that way just so I could write this silly, goofy, fun thing, and they're kind of enabling me to write ridiculous fiction. For thank you, by the way, all of you for that. All right, Danny, thanks again. It's NoClip, NoClip video.
NoClip video on YouTube, patreon.com/Danny O'Dwyer. My name is not that common. If you just type Danny O'Dwyer into YouTube, or into the internet, a picture of my stupid face usually pops up. So
it's a lovely face.
Just do that. Your face is lovely.
Very pretty.
We've all lovely faces here.
Except for
this guy's Doom guy is not looking too
good. No, this is
Revenant.
That Revenant's he's kind of hideous. People want to know more about Revenants. Where can they look?
Oh yes, NoClip video on YouTube. Check out our Doom feature. I haven't actually named what they're going to be called yet, but if you're a fan of the old Dooms or the new Dooms or Dooms that were never released, you may want to check this video out.
Ooh, wow. Yeah. That's intriguing.
You will see.
Exciting. All right, thanks, guys, so much for watching, listening. Until next time, have a wonderful week. Thanks.